Good evening, dear comrades, members of SAFTU, working class activists, members of the public who may be watching this live broadcast of the SAFTU, the first of its kind ever. Thank you very much for joining us. This is an attempt on our part as the Federation to, during this period of the lockdown, interact with the workers, the members of the public, about the crisis we are finding ourselves in as workers and as members of the working class. It is an extraordinary moment of the coronavirus outbreak. The South African Federation, SAFTU, stands in solidarity first with all families who have lost their loved ones to COVID-19 and those who have tested COVID-19 positive. The pandemic has infected millions and killed hundreds of thousands around the world. In South Africa, like other parts of the world, the infection and the death rate increases daily. The outbreak occurs at a time when the South African economy is underperforming and has been consistently shedding jobs. Our government declared a national disaster, thus imposing a lockdown that limits both movement and economic activity. Like in other countries, the lockdown has resulted in deep economic depression. Different sectors were shut down and many workers could not go to work, for many resulting in no income. The Department of Employment and Labor introduced financial support measures to assist business and employees to deal better with the financial losses caused directly by COVID-19. SASSA introduced a financial benefit for unemployed persons and increased social grants, but are these measures enough, and do they really reach the intended recipients? On the other hand, we have seen how private companies took advantage and launched a targeted attack on workers. Employers have reduced workers' salaries and retrenched workers without following proper procedures. Workers have been forced to work without the appropriate protective gear, and in some cases, non-essential workers have been forced to go to work at the high risk of contracting the coronavirus. SAFTU's response is based on the following pillars. Pillar number one, government has not taken into consideration the reality of the working class, the race and age of the affected people when implementing the lockdown and introducing the social distance regulations. The government was also ignorant to the fact that service delivery to the majority of South Africans is poor and dismal in some areas. There is the housing crisis, and a big number of black communities are crammed in squatter camps where they use the public toilets and communal taps. Keeping social distance under these circumstances is difficult, just as is the case for those staying in the RDP houses. Secondly, the neoliberal ANC-led government made it clear that protecting big business is a priority and will use public money to subsidize private sector companies. These businesses have amassed huge profit by exploiting and underpaying workers to build the huge financial reserves. During this crisis, these reserves remain untouched while workers whose sweat actively generated such profits remain in the cold face of a deepening poverty, widening inequality, and rising unemployment. The introduction, which is the third pillar, the introduction of these financial aid schemes, given our government's weak monitoring system, is likely to be another opportunity for white-collar crime. Government has paid very little attention to the informal sector, which constitute about 10 million workers. During the lockdown, we have witnessed racialized police and military brutally directed towards the working class. This brutality is indicative of the remnants of the apartheid-style training they receive. Fourthly, the Federation and voice of the working class will call on workers to defend worker unity and never allow to be weakened by this neoliberal onslaught. We confront a reality where trade unions can no longer organize workers like we have always done. Workers can no longer hold meetings, conduct leader development programs like before, and take to the streets in numbers. The employers continue to disregard collective bargaining. It is thus imperative that alternative ways of organizing must be sought to target even those workers who are not organized. And lastly, in the interest of keeping our workers informed and engaged, SAFTU has opted to make more use of social media. SAFTU will be launching a series of webinars, the Facebook live streaming sessions such as we are doing tonight, WhatsApp notices, Twitter, and other forms as an alternative and as an attempt to reach workers far and wide. We will dig deeper into the topics affecting workers. So starting this Thursday from 7 o'clock, SAFTU will go live in a series of live streamings which will be presented by different leaders of the Federation going forward. As an example, on Thursday, 7 o'clock, please tune in, where we will be going deeper into the going back to work regulations. As you are aware, the Minister of Cooperatives as well as of Traditional Affairs, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, published the regulations that allow us to move to stage 4 of the lockdown. And this allows some sections of workers to go back to work, which will add to workers who were never staying at home because there are essential services, there are maintenance workers. So this level 4 require at least 1.5 million workers to join those essential services workers and the maintenance workers to begin to do work. What we will do on Thursday, through Comrade Patrice Mkhize, who have a very strong legal background, we will present those regulations for almost an hour, talk to them in detail, so that every worker can know what rights they have, what obligations they have, and what they must do to protect other workers within the workplace and within the communities. On Tuesday, the coming week, we will again focus on the other element of the returning to work program in line with level 4 of the regulations. We will be digging deeper into the UIF, the Unemployment Insurance Fund. We will either present it ourselves or invite the Department of Employment and Labor to present the UIF so that we can interact as to why so many workers continue to complain that they are not receiving their UIF, and why and what they must do in cases where they establish that workers, whereas they were contributing, the employers was not handing over their contributions to the Department of Labor, a situation that have left so many workers in the dry. We will continue with that to focus on other social programs to mitigate the COVID-19. As you are aware, the government has announced a series of social programs. We will look at what is in these social programs, be they the child support grants, be they the special grant that is being given to the unemployed, or be they the pensions and many others. We will present them to better inform the SAFTU members, the members of the working class, as well as workers in general. We will then have a look on the access to the big issue confronting all of us, the working class, but in particular confronting the healthcare workers, the front line workers who are much more exposed to being infected by the sick and or the people who have been infected by the virus. We will invite our own unions organizing healthcare workers to tell us what is happening in relation to the protective or to the personal protective clothing, so that we can get the guidelines as to what are the government regulations saying and what is the reality that we as the workers are facing going forward. We will have another look at what are the implications of this COVID-19 at the social and economic level. We will engage with an economist to come and explain what are the consequences of shutting down the economy now on the 5th week and seemingly going forward in a manner that all of us are not clear as to how long we're going to remain at level 4 in terms of the regulations. We will continue to discuss even SAFTU as an organization. We will better inform the members of the working class and the SAFTU members, educate them about the principles that led to the formation of the Federation, the 9 principles, the principle of independence, the principle of worker control and internal democracy, the principle of self-sufficiency and fighting corruption within the trade union movement and outside, the principle of being socialist orientated, the principle of being internationalist in character, the principle of being pan-Africanist but with an international outlook, the principle of being non-discriminatory, working to oppose sexual or gender discrimination, racial discrimination, as part of building the bridges of unity of the working class. And there will be many of those discussions every Tuesday. Tune in at 7 o'clock. Every Thursday, tune in at 7 o'clock. We will try to spread by getting as many of our unions to do the presentations themselves. These presentations will not be presented by me, the General Secretary, and or the national office bearers will have no monopoly in the platform. This will provide an opportunity for every of the SAFTU unions to present on all of the challenges that we are facing as the working class. So don't forget, every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, there will be a different speaker. Every Thursday at 7 o'clock in the evening, there will be a different speaker. Tune in, spread the message, invite all members of the Federation or workers in general to educate themselves, to engage, to ask questions. For example, we are now asking you using the SAFTU page, start now to ask pertinent questions of concern to you as workers, such that when Comrade Patrick Mkhize, the General Secretary of TON, present on behalf of the Federation the return to work regulations, he is able to take an opportunity to also answer your questions live. This is enough for tonight. This was just an introduction of the program. Long live SAFTU. Viva to all of its affiliated unions. Long live the unity of the working class. And good evening to all of you, comrades. Goodbye.